Hi, everybody. My name is LaForest St. Fleur. We're going to tell you about a lot of things that technically you should know because I want every single person in the community, especially in people that I do business with or that I get in touch with every day in their daily lives to have financial freedom so they can be able to provide for their family. A lot of people now work 9 to 5 jobs, but working a 9 to 5 job, that's what we call a dead end. So you're always gonna need to work for somebody. But if you need real financial freedom, we have the information to help you. We're gonna talk about real estate. We can talk about insurance. We talk about mortgages. We talk about real estate investing, what we call flipping for profit, how to buy a house, get it renovated, and sell it to make a profit. We're also, of course, going to talk about taxation because tax season is right around the corner. So for the next couple of months, we're going to talk about taxes. So every week when we do this little talk, we're going to pick one topic that we're going to discuss. And sometimes we're going to have live sessions where you guys will have the opportunity to call in and ask questions. And the session is not just only for people who are going to file their taxes. We have some preparers also who do not have the opportunity to get tax law updates, to know about all the new changes in the tax laws. So you guys, if you're watching, I want you guys to call in and ask me questions. Ask your best questions. Yes, I want you to put me on the spot, make me blush, humiliate me on TV. That is fine. Come in, call, and ask me your best and the most difficult question. So now, today, what I want to talk about is talk about filing statuses. So people, they go to a tax preparer, they want to file their taxes. They're not sure what is their filing status. Sometimes, depending on who you go to, if they don't do a thorough interview with you at the beginning, they give you the wrong status. Number one, there are two things that could happen. Number one, you miss out on a lot of money, or worse, you get audited by the IRS. So I want you guys to understand what is your filing status. First, we're going to talk about how many statuses there are, and also what is your filing status. We say there are 5 filing statuses. We have single, married filing jointly, married filing separately, head of household, and a qualifying widow or qualifying widower. So for single taxpayers, what does it mean to be filing as single? Well, filing single is easy. If you are single by the last day of the tax year, usually for most taxpayers it's December 31st because most taxpayers use a calendar year taxes, not a fiscal year. So you are a single. Whatever your status is on the last day of the year, that's what your status is for tax purposes. So a single is somebody who's not married and who did not have a dependent, usually, on their tax return. That person is single. So married filing jointly. Somebody is married and they're filing jointly with the spouse. So if your tax filing or marital status is married on the last day of the tax year, then you are considered married. So let's say, for example, you spend your whole year being single, and at the last minute, December 31st at 11:59 p.m., you decide to get married with your best friend. Oh, so your filing status is married. So if somebody is married, when you file your taxes, the word married should be included in your filing status. You're either married filing jointly or married filing separately. There are some tax advantages to married filing jointly, many advantages. So it's always a good thing to file married filing jointly. So in the case of a divorce, for example, where the people are going to a divorce, but if the divorce is not final, there's not a final decree of divorce or separate maintenance decided by a judge in a court. So if you guys can work it out, it's always better if you file married filing jointly because technically you guys are still married. And we have married filing separately. You can file married filing separately. Usually that filing status is reserved for high income earners. They make a lot of money, so they lose certain things so that they were not gonna get anyway because they make too much money. In the case of somebody who's in the middle class who didn't make a lot of money, so married filing separately might turn out to be the worst filing status that you could file under, because you lose a lot of things. You lose your earned income credit, you lose education credit. Doesn't matter whether it's American Opportunity Credit or lifetime learning credit, you lose that. And even in the case of child tax credit or dependent care credit, you can get those credit, but you only get a partial credit, not the whole credit. But now you would ask, okay, why would somebody ever file married filing separately? Well, if you are separated from your spouse and somehow you guys can work it out, and you say, okay, I don't want you to know anything about my business, or I don't want her to know anything about my business, yes, of course, you guys will file married filing separately. There are other cases where when one spouse doesn't want to be responsible for anything that's included in the other spouse taxes. So in a case, let's say somebody has a child support obligation. So if you file married filing jointly and somehow you owe child support, they're gonna end up keeping that whole money. You don't get your refund because your spouse had a child support. Because under the law, when you file jointly, they have what they call joint and several liability. Together, you are responsible for the taxes, and separately, each one of you are responsible for the taxes. So if somebody passes away, even though it wasn't for you, it was under your husband or your wife, you're still responsible for whatever was in your taxes when you file jointly. For that reason, most people sometimes would decide to file married filing separately. But if you can avoid it, if you don't have that issue, then you don't have to file married filing separately if you guys can work it out. The next filing status we're going to talk about is head of household. To file head of household, you need either a qualifying child or a qualifying relative. So for today's session, we're not going to define who is a qualifying child or who is a qualifying relative. But in the next session, hopefully, we can tell you what is the difference between a qualifying child and a qualifying relative. Because you will know about what we call the residency test, that they must live with you for a certain number of months, and sometimes they don't live with you at all. So we're going to tell you about the difference. So we have one more filing status, what we call a qualifying widow or qualifying widower. So that status is in the case where two people are married, one spouse died during the year. So in the year of death, the surviving spouse can file as married filing jointly with the deceased spouse if the surviving spouse did not remarry. If you remarried with somebody else, you can file jointly with your new spouse. But if you had a child, you have a qualifying child with your spouse, then with the deceased spouse. So because you had a child that you're caring for and you're providing a home for that child, so for the 2 years after the year of death, you file as a qualifying widow if you're a woman, or qualifying widower if you're a man, and you still get to use the same amount that the married couples get for as standard deduction. So that translates into a higher deduction for you, a lower taxable income, a much lower tax liability, which means a bigger refund for you. So, for example, just to clarify, we say if somebody is married and one spouse passed away in 2020, for this year 2020, when you come file your taxes in 2021, this year, you can file jointly with your deceased spouse. And for the next 2 years, for tax year 2021 and tax year 2022, your filing status should be a qualifying widow or qualifying widower. A lot of times people don't know. They go and they say, okay, are you married? They say no. And they just give you either head of household because you have a child, but you would have gotten a bigger refund had the preparer asked you more questions, or whether if you knew that technically there's another status called a qualifying widow or qualifying widower. I hope with this session I was able to clarify for you guys what are the filing statuses and what's involved, So like I said, we're gonna have a lot other sessions, and we're gonna call it, which I should have mentioned before, we're gonna call it Tax Talk, because that's what we do. We talk about taxes. We tell you what you need to know in the law, what can affect you, and what gonna get you the maximum refund. Because as a tax preparer, our role is to get you the maximum refund that you're entitled to under the law. And the IRS says it. So whenever there's a conflict between what the law says and what the government would get and what we must to do for our clients, we say our duty or our obligation is to the taxpayers, to our clients. We want to make sure they get the most. So we're going to have a tax talk every week where we're going to discuss a lot of different topics that has to do with taxation. So if you have any ambiguity as to what we discussed today, so next time, especially during live sessions, write your questions down, and I will be more than happy to answer any and all questions. And until next time, I say goodbye, take care, and enjoy this new year, and happy tax season. Thank you.